You're sitting in a waiting room. No phone. You left it in the car by accident. There's nothing on the walls. The chairs are plastic. Nobody is talking. You have nowhere to be for the next 20 minutes. And within about 90 seconds, something starts to happen. A restlessness, a pull. Your eyes move to the door, to the floor, to the ceiling. You are completely safe. You are completely fine. And you cannot stand it. For 300,000 years, this feeling didn't exist. Not because ancient humans were enlightened or patient, but because the world they lived in never allowed for it. The environment that shaped your brain was loud, unpredictable, and relentlessly demanding. So why does doing nothing feel so unbearable? And why does having everything to do still leave you feeling empty? Most people assume boredom is a modern inconvenience, something that happens when your Wi-Fi cuts out or a meeting runs long, something trivial, something weak. But in 2014, philosopher Andreas Elpidorou at the University of Louisville published a paper in Frontiers in Psychology that reframed boredom entirely. He called it the bright side of boredom. His argument was that boredom isn't a flaw in the system. It's the system working exactly as designed. It's a regulatory signal. Your brain detecting that what you're doing right now has stopped being worth your time and pushing you hard towards something better. Boredom evolved to keep you moving. The problem is that it evolved for a world that no longer exists, and that explains a lot about why modern life feels the way it does. Here's what we're going to explore. Why boredom is one of the oldest survival mechanisms in the human brain. Why ancient humans almost never experienced it the way you do. What happened to the boredom signal when the modern world flooded it with infinite stimulation. And why you can spend 8 hours scrolling through content and still feel profoundly, inexplicably empty. Let's start with what boredom actually is, because most people have it wrong. Boredom is not the absence of things to do. In 2012, psychologist John Eastwood at York University published a landmark study defining boredom as the failure to engage with available activities in a satisfying way. The word available is the key. You can be surrounded by things to do and still be bored. You can have a phone full of apps, a streaming service with 40,000 titles, and feel nothing. Because boredom isn't about quantity of options. It's about your brain's inability to connect to any of them as meaningful. That distinction matters more than it sounds, because it means boredom is not laziness. It's a mismatch between what your attention system is looking for and what it's being given. But here's where it gets interesting. Boredom didn't evolve to make you watch Netflix. It evolved to make you move. In the environment your brain was built for. The African savanna, a small camp of 15 to 50 people, a world where your next meal was genuinely uncertain. Boredom served a precise purpose. Professor Brian Little at the University of Cambridge put it plainly. Boredom created the motivation for exploration, moving to new locations, trying unfamiliar foods, seeking new social bonds. Every one of those behaviors increased survival. Boredom was the biological kick that prevented your ancestors from settling too long in any place that had stopped offering value. Think about what that world looked like in practice. You wake up, the immediate environment tells you what needs doing. Food is low. You hunt or gather. The camp needs firewood. You get it. Someone is sick. You tend to them. And in the rare moments when none of those demands existed, when the hunt had been good and the fire was going and the group was safe, your brain did exactly what it was designed to do. It got restless. It pushed you to explore, to create, to make something. Boredom fired, and it had somewhere useful to go. Now let's talk about what the research actually shows about ancient humans and boredom. The evidence comes from something counterintuitive, the art. In 1994, explorers discovered Chauvet Cave in southern France. Inside were paintings made roughly 35,000 years ago. Horses, lions, rhinoceroses rendered with perspective, with shading, with a sense of movement that required not just skill but extended, undistracted time. Someone spent days deep inside that cave by firelight painting animals they'd already seen. Not for food, not for protection, for something harder to name. In Blombos Cave in South Africa, archaeologists found shell beads over 100,000 years old, tiny holes drilled through shells from a coastline 20 kilometers away. Someone walked 40 kilometers round trip just to collect them, then spent hours drilling each hole with a stone tool, just to look beautiful. This wasn't boredom. This was boredom resolved. The signal fired, the brain found something worth engaging with, and it went deep. Here's the part that nobody talks about. Ancient humans didn't have a boredom problem because their boredom signal and their environment were calibrated to each other. The signal said, "Find something more meaningful." And the world said, "Here are 1,000 things that are genuinely more meaningful." Track an animal, learn a new plant, reinforce a relationship, carve something. The circuit completed over and over for 300,000 years. And this is where the research gets uncomfortable. In 2014, psychologist Timothy Wilson at the University of Virginia ran a series of 11 studies on what happens when people are left alone with nothing to do. No phone, no book, no task, just a room and their own thoughts for 15 minutes. The results were striking. Roughly half of participants reported the experience as actively unpleasant. And then Wilson went further. He gave participants a button that would deliver a small electric shock to their ankle. He told them they could press it if they wanted. These were people who had minutes earlier said they would pay money to avoid being shocked. 2/3 of men and 1/4 of women pressed the button anyway. One person pressed it 190 times. They chose pain over stillness. Your brain, left without a meaningful target, will manufacture discomfort just to have something to respond to. Here's why this matters today. The boredom signal didn't change when the world did. Your brain still runs the same ancient circuit. Detect low engagement, push towards something more meaningful. But the modern world hacked that circuit. Every notification, every scroll, every autoplay video is designed by engineers who understand exactly how to intercept the boredom signal before it can complete. They don't give you meaning. They give you the sensation of movement. And the circuit never closes. A 2021 study found that average screen time among adults had crossed 11 hours per day in many industrialized countries. 11 hours of inputs that feel like engagement but deliver nothing the boredom signal was actually asking for. You feel it at the end of a long day online. You did so much. You absorbed so much. And you feel somehow more empty than when you started. That's not a character flaw. That's the boredom circuit running on empty, asking for something real and getting handed more static. So here's what we know. Boredom is not weakness. It's one of the oldest navigation systems in the human brain, a signal that evolved over hundreds of thousands of years to push you toward things that actually matter. Ancient humans didn't escape boredom. They resolved it constantly, in a world that gave the signal somewhere real to go. We built a world so full of stimulation that the signal never gets to complete. We gave the hunger every flavor except food, and so we scroll and click and cue the next episode and feel the restlessness anyway. Not because we're broken, because the signal is still working. It's just that nothing we built knows how to answer it.